I am Angela Motzinger. I'm so excited you're here. We put on and administer the DBE Supported Services contract for KDOT. Third Fridays, we're doing July 20th, which is today. We might be doing August 17th, and then we're also doing a workshop where you can come in and do your website. So we'll have a checklist of stuff beforehand that you'll need to bring to the workshop, and then we'll help you actually assemble everything. And at the end of the day, you should have a working website.
Yeah, it's August 23rd, and it's limited, it's only gonna be limited to a few people, so if you
Yeah.
think you might be interested in it, let me know, because I'll get you on the list. It'll be
Awesome. Okay, so this month's book, we try to do a book a month. You can't send a duck to Eagle School. So kind of the idea is that you can hire people, and you want to really hire for the qualities that you're looking for, and then you can teach them the product of what you do. Because you can't train someone, well, you can, it might be kind of painful. Take a bad customer service person and turn them into a good one, or someone that doesn't buy into your mission, and then someone that does. So it's a great read. There's lots of great tips in the book. I love the quote. I always try to pick out a quote. Quality is never an accident. It is always the result of high intention, sincere effort, intelligent direction, and skillful execution. It represents the wise choice of many alternatives. So I said, I'm Angela Motzinger, and all my information's there. The best way to get a hold of me if you need to get to somebody is to schedule through Amy. She takes care of my scheduling. I'm Angela. Amy's back there in the corner. Yulie is also in our office. Abby Young, she does our communication. Becca Booth does our website. She'll be doing next month's workshop. Becky Eason, she does strategic planning. Lisa is here. She does the newsletters that we get and all kinds of wonderful stuff. She also keeps our Facebook up to par. Chris Covert is a CPA in Lawrence, and I'll do joint work with him. He'll come in and we'll usually do one over reviews and audits. I can do it as well, but he's just a great guy. I've been doing it for years. I try to keep in my network a pocket full of bankers, bonding agents, attorneys, financial advisors. If there's anyone else you'd like to network with, I'm more than happy to set up a lunch and introduce anything I can do to help you get your business to the next level. Questions? Okay, Yulie, if you'd like to pass out a 1040. I thought it would be good to kind of go over a basic review of what a 1040 is, because I don't know how often people sit down and look at their taxes. So the 2018 form is not available yet, but obviously there will be some changes and we'll talk about that. So the basic tax formula, I love talking about income tax. I teach it at the college level. I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Just like with Christmas. Okay, so the first thing you'll notice on the page of the 1040, you have two breaking spots on the left side. You have income and adjusted gross income. So at the top, obviously it's you and your spouse if you're married, or you if you're by yourself. When you call into IRS, a tip is you need to have that first social security number that's on the form. So if you and your spouse are joint and you're a spouse, you need to have your taxpayer, your husband's or partners, whoever listed first in the social security. There's a variety of filing statuses. We've got single, married filing jointly, married filing separately. If you do married filing separately, a caveat to know is that you may lose some valuable credits. Also, if you married filing separately and one of you chooses to itemize, the other has to do the same. Or if one takes a standard, the other has to take a standard. They have to match. So that can be really good sometimes for one spouse and really crappy for another. Head of household, there's checklists online, you can go through that, and then qualifying widower, so if you lose a spouse along the way, there are special rules. So those are the 5 filing statuses. I always get a question like, what if we got married part here? The rule is whatever you are on December 31st is how you file. So if you are single, you file single. If you're married, your choices are married filing joint or married filing separately. There used to be a huge penalty for being married. It's kind of leveled itself out. So I would read about people who would get divorced on like the 30th and then go to Vegas and have a party and they'd be married on January 1st of the next year. Because it depends on what is on that 31st. I don't advise that, but. Okay, total income. So there's obviously line numbers, pretty much got to memorize after all these years. So wages, those are W-2 wages. So if you're an S corp, you will have a W-2 that you should put on this line. If you have your spouse or someone who works, that will also go on that. Number 8 and 9 are interest and dividends. Taxable refunds or credits, that's if you itemize and got a tax benefit. Alimony received. So if you receive alimony, there's a form you fill out, and you have to include the Social Security. There has to be a matching, because I'm guaranteeing you probably the other person is putting alimony paid down below with your Social Security number on it. So it's always good to have things match and not get nastyograms from the IRS. 12, if you are a sole proprietor or a single member LLC, you will have income flowing or loss flowing to 12. So Schedule C is another schedule that goes in. I put on a longer class, we'll go over that. I just want to make sure to give you an overview. Capital gains and losses, those are items that you have long-term, and you pay capital gains tax versus ordinary income tax on those. IRA distributions or pensions, that shows up on 15 and 16. I have had clients who have been forced into starting their own business, or they find themselves cash crunched and they will pull out of their retirement. I always suggest that you talk to your CPA or financial planner before you do that, but if you do have something along those lines, that will come up on 15 or 16. 17 is if you have rental income or S corporations or partnerships. So those Schedule E is what you fill out for those. It flows through then to 17 here. Farm income, that's just a Schedule F. If at any point you had unemployment compensation, it would go on 20. And then other income is any other type of income you would have gotten throughout the year. Sometimes people do contract work outside of the business. It just depends. Talk to your CPA or accountant. Okay, adjusted gross income. So we're right here in total income. So then we look at adjustments under the adjusted gross income. So educator expenses. If you're an educator, $250. Certain expenses for performing artists, government officials. If you contribute to a health savings account, that's on 25. Certain moving expenses is on 26. If you are in an entity or business where you're doing self-employment tax, so single member LLC, multi-member LLC, or partnership, have income, that will show up on 27. 28 is awesome for step and simples. Always talk to your accountant to see if you can squirrel some money away for when you retire, if any of us ever retire. 29, self-employed health, alimony paid. See, so the person who's paying it is obviously going to put information because they want an adjustment, so then that will catch you on the match. Student loan interest deduction. If you're within certain parameters, you can deduct student loan interest and tuition and fees. So then that gets us down to 37, which is adjusted gross income. 37, you'll a lot of times hear on the news, they'll talk about the line. So this is the line. Anything above it on page 1 is above the line. Anything below that line is obviously below the line. We want to push as much as we can, and we'll get the most tax benefit if we push everything onto this first page. Their schedules. Questions? Okay, the next step in the basic tax formula is you decide, hey, am I going to take the standard or itemized deductions? We will go over a little bit of that as we go over the 2000. There's huge changes with that. Up until now, you were able to take exemptions. In 2018, those are all going away. And then we come to taxable income. And then that's what internally goes in, on your tax software. It will figure out what tax you owe. You can also go to the tax tables if by any chance you're doing them manually, which I do not recommend. Credits. So credits or allowances. Credits will decrease your tax liability dollar for dollar. So those are good ones to have. You owe $10. You have a $10 credit, you now owe 0 tax. There are also credits that are refundable versus non-refundable. What that means is, if I get to line 44 and the tax is 0, a non-refundable credit would mean, guess what? You get the credit, you're eligible for the credit, but you don't get it because there's no tax. If you have a refundable credit, that means that you can hit the 0 tax and you'll still get the credit. Any questions? Okay, let's see, exemption tax credits, other taxes. So that's line 57, self-employment tax. If there's any adjustments for Social Security and Medicare tax. If you have a household employee, that goes on 60A. We still are in the, people are recouping from credits for buying a home from years ago. 61 is the healthcare responsibility, so if you have full coverage, you have nothing there, and then various taxes. So then you kind of come up with your total tax due on 63, and then you start taking away your credits. So if you have an S corp, you should have federal withholding on your W-2. If you've made estimated tax payments, that will also come in. Earned income credit, also can play into some small business owners, because sometimes they hit that sweet spot of where they have just enough earned income, but they'll be eligible for the earned income credits. Okay, so let me go through there, and then on 75, 76, or 78, you say, hey, I owe, don't owe, want to carry forward, etc. Questions? Okay, let's switch through here. Let's see, I'm going the wrong way. Oh, that was fun. I am not IT, and I own that 110%. Okay, let's switch over to the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, if anybody brought their book. Some of the things I noticed when I'm going through the book, I like to highlight as I go, and I like to write in the margins. So my book looks like this, and I'm all over the place. And the foreword I thought was very moving. If you want to achieve your highest and overcome your greatest challenges, you really need to hang out with people that are doing the same. Because I believe now firmly, my business will be open 7 years next year. Amy's also a small business owner, Lisa is. I think we can all attest to the people you hang around with can really affect the performance of yourself, and that also then projects onto your business. We need to identify and apply the principles or natural laws that govern the results we seek. So I always tell people it's a good idea to know where you want to get and then step back into how am I going to get there? I always feel like it's good to have a plan always. There's a section on here which I love, it's on page 16 at the bottom. It's called Blame and Victimism. So the if only, it always pushes like, if only this would happen, if only this, I would be successful, if only, this didn't happen. In the book it says, if I hadn't been so poor, if I lived in a better place, if I hadn't inherited a temper. I mean, I just find those all kind of excuse modes, so don't fall into the victim. I suggest not hanging out with people that do. I have had those people in my life, and it is just an endless train. One of the things I loved also is focus on those that live with focus and integrity. I love to hang out with direct people. They just have a great energy about them. Then you tend to attract other people, and then you got the synergy going, and it's amazing. The first section on Inside Out starts on page 23. And it talks about, the quote that begins the section is, there's no real excellence in all this world which can be separated from right living. So it talks about people who have, and I've encountered this, full disclosure, in my business, it talks about how outwardly you seem very successful, but internally, like at home, like people just want to crap. And so it's just a hard balance, but I love that this chapter talks about the outward success and the inward struggle that we have, because it just seems like there's always this balance. There never seems to be enough time. There never seems to be, it's just this, sometimes I feel like I'm in the rat wheel. I'm getting less and less because I'm hanging around more people that are focused on what they're doing. So try to get out of the rat wheel. Did anyone else have anything that they would like to share that they read in the book? Does anyone need a book? you need a book, if you can let Amy know, she will get you, I think Amy used the word drop ship. Amy introduced me to Amazon Prime, which is a double-edged sword.
I will drop ship it to you from Amazon.
So you get this, and then we're also working through the workbook. I'm gonna kind of not spend a lot of time if no one has any comments, because we started a little late, and I wanna make sure we have time for everything. So just let Amy know. All right, Julie, can you hand out the next handout? Okay. We're good. Okay, so that's kind of a worksheet, that was in this handout that I have. Some things that are huge changes, personal independency exemptions are eliminated. So normally you would have taken $44,150 for each person in your household, those are gone. Gone, done. Another thing that's gonna affect a lot of people is the standard deduction. It's gonna push it to where a lot of people won't be able to itemize, and they're gonna end up taking the deduction. The standard deduction has increased. It was gonna be $13,000, with the new law it's $24,000. So you gotta have a lot of mortgage interest or contributions or medical expenses that are going to push you over that. So it's very, 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 very important that you meet with your tax person and have them do tax projections and figure out where you're at, because you do not want to be at this end of this year ended up in a quagmire. That would not be good. Itemized deductions are changing. For instance, medical expenses is going from 10% to 7.5 temporarily. The state law, so a lot of times successful businesses, if you're an S corp, you put a lot of money in state tax and you make those estimated tax payments, and you are able to beef up your number on your Schedule A, which would allow you to itemize. That is now limited for 2018 to $10,000. So that's why there was that big rush, because somebody silly signed law right before Christmas that CPA's lines were just blowing up because they wanted to get everything in that they could. Okay, so that takes care of that one. Mortgage interest deductions, it used to be $1 million. You could have up to $1 million mortgage. And that has now gone down to $750,000, so you could get limited there potentially. And then also another thing that has gone away, a lot of people don't get it, but it's 2% itemized on Schedule A. So like if you're a W-2 person, I see there's a lot of construction companies where people will take steel-toed boots or uniforms, and they have to buy their own, and they'll fill out the 2106. That'll be gone now too. We have new tax rate brackets. The old ones were 10, and I'll just compare the new ones. So 10 to 10, that stayed the same. If you paid 15%, you dropped to 12, 25 to 22, 28 to 24, 33 to 32, 35 stayed the same, and 39.6 dropped to 37. So look who we're helping out. Nice thing, child tax credit has doubled. So instead of 1,000, it's 2,000. Where we talked before though, it used to be 100% of it was refundable, so if you had zero tax, now only 1,500 of that will be refundable if you haven't used it above, on the second page of the 1040. Everything is temporary and scheduled to expire in 2026. I gotta tell you, I was very surprised that these changes were actually signed into law. When I started hearing about the crazy things they were doing, like, there's no way this is gonna pass. And it did. Okay, so for individuals, it's very important that you are mindful of a few items. Name changes. If you get married or your name changes, make sure that your Social Security Administration card, your Social Security card.
Caesar salad, small Caesar salad, somewhere.
Slug has on the water.
We have spiced chicken salad. Spiced chicken salad. Sugar. Red solid chicken.
Salmon is always.
Red solid chicken.
Mommy tacos.
fish, talk to you sweets. Small food to miss. Dollars right
Okay, so name changes, Social Security Administration, you need to make sure those match or your tax return will get rejected. Address changes are extremely important. Amy is our payroll expert in my office. And we actually had, one person who moved twice, didn't tell us, so the returns we were sending in, so notices were getting sent to the old address, the client was saying we weren't getting addresses, it was a mess. Another thing that you wanna make sure you're getting on your employees is a new, W-4 I try to do them every year. Or at least say, hey, do you have an update, so that way if anybody's moved, if an employee's longer with you, they'll get your W-2 timely. Withholding, wage withholding and estimated tax, again, meet with your CPA, there's also, I'll show you a place, there's a calculator online that you can also kind of estimate, like what should my withholding be versus now, so that way you're not over or under year ends. The 2018 tax tip is there's an IRS withholding calculator, so you go to IRS, do withholding calculator, you can put in kind of what you can put in your gross pay and all that stuff, and it will tell you kind of what you should be withholding. Questions there? Okay, boy, they really blew the lid off of this.
Small cranberry walnut. Turkey pesto gravy.
Oh, I can email out, Dan, I'll email
Small
out the
Caesar
PowerPoint to you.
salad.
Yeah, if you want to, or you can take a picture, it's up to you, it'll probably be easier to read in the PowerPoint.
Does anyone have a small Caesar salad?
Okay, so everybody heard about C Corps, they dropped. Well, they also, tax rates for flow-through individuals is also dropping, but there's kind of these complex catch things. So once again, find a good CPA that knows what they're talking about, because you can really find yourself in a pickle. Okay, the new deduction should shelter, it can shelter up to 20% of the qualified business income from tax. So that's an extremely simplified, very simplified way of looking at it, but that's the general idea. So who qualifies for this? Sole proprietors, partners, S Corp shareholders, LLC members. Now over here, I'm gonna jump over here, because the deduction's not only for income tax, and we're not even for sure how to report it on the forms. They haven't even come out with this yet. So we've just, as a tax practitioner, we just kind of got this guideline out there that we're trying to do the best we can, but we're not even for sure how this 20% is gonna show up on tax returns. As soon as I get that, I'll either do a teachable or we'll do it in the luncheon and I'll pop in and show you how that works. Okay, let me get it here. So we talked about who qualifies. Now, the other fun part of this is that there are certain types of people that they use the specified service businesses that do not just get the general 20% out of the gate. So these are people in the service health industry, law offices, accounting offices, actuarials, science performing arts, consulting, athletics, financial services, or any trade or business where the principal asset is the reputation or the skill of one person. Isn't that nice? Okay, so then we wonder, what is qualified business income? That is items that are effectively connected to conduct business in the United States. So if you have anyone that's going abroad, they were careful to put that in. So again, the deduction is generally equal to 20% of the qualified business income. Now, if you have a specific service, there is a couple of formulas that you can go by, and there's also some fade-ins, fade-outs. Okay, so the taxable income, which means your bottom line income for the year, is less than $315,000 on a joint return or $157,500 on all other returns. married, filing separately, single. A partial deduction can be remain until the taxable receives 415 on a joint return, 207 on other return. Again, this is just for income tax purposes. This is not gonna drop any self-employment tax that's due if you're a sole proprietor, single member LLC partnership. Questions? Okay, IRS website tools. I don't know how often you go to IRS website. I'm guessing not too often because we're small business owners. We are exhausted from just running our own businesses or our neck of the woods. But they have withholding calculators. There is sales tax deduction still available. So if you want to know if I go buy an RV for my business and I travel in it, or I buy a nice new car, or whatever, how that works. Also in giving statements, I want to take a second to talk about contributions. So there is a place where you can go to make sure people are nonprofits. Things I run into, contributions versus advertising or marketing. So let me give you an example. I get the books in, I'm a detail person, so I love looking through people's books and making sure everything balances. Makes me so happy, I sleep well at night, it's wonderful. So I'll see things like sponsored voice, ball clubs, you know, the name shows up on the ball. They put in their contribution. That is not contribution, that is advertising. On flow-through entities, if you have a contribution, it flows through the Schedule A and it can get limited and you potentially will have to tax it. If it's marketing or advertising, then you get to take it dollar for dollar against it. Questions on that? And I would say probably 99% of the time, we are marketing our business. Small business owners, we live, eat it, breathe it. I've always got business cards. My daughter and son of my husband will be out, and I'll start up a conversation, and they'll be like, oh. But it's always on, because that's how we grow our business. Questions on that? Contributions versus advertising or marketing. There's also IRS tax map that you can use. It kind of walks you through how things are calculated. There is also an interactive tax assistant. You can go through and say, this is my issue, can you help me solve this? My problem with this is, you don't know what you're talking about. You could end up with a wrong answer. And then when you get to the end of this, because I went through it, it says, you may not rely on this information solely for tax purposes, even if you print it off, and so they're really covering their tail ends. EFTPS, I'm gonna tell you a story about EFTPS. I am huge, I think you should not send in paper, you should get on EFTPS, get it set up. Also on your state estimated taxes, you need to set them up that way too. Had a client who had an S corp. We did some estimated tax projections and I said, okay, we need to send in $125,000. Okay, let me get that all taken care of, put a check in, send it to the IRS. I get this phone call, I think maybe, what was it, about 8 weeks probably afterwards. Oh my gosh, I'm getting this refund of like $125,000 from my S corp. I'm like, what? So the gentleman sent in the business check with no social security number or name written in the memo, and somehow the voucher and the check got somehow separated at IRS. That's why I don't like to send stuff in there. And so it took like probably 3 of my hours to get it fixed. So, but if you're doing this, you can use your business account to use your routing account number, but you make sure that everything's credited where it needs to go. Because then right after that, then he got the notice due that he owed $125,000 plus penalties and interest and all this stuff. And I was like, oh. Also, another side note, we had a client who, funny how you learn these stories as your practice go out, who got a check from the IRS for $120,000? I can't remember what it was. It was a pretty good size amount. And they thought IRS would just, oh my God, this is great. They cashed the check. And it was not theirs to cash. So, but they didn't notify us. If you get a check there, please, for the love of all things good and whole, call your tax person and say, is this really what I'm supposed to be getting? So we have TPS, always, always. Side note on estimated tax payments. So I've run into some people, it's been interesting, I get to talk to a lot of folks when I do stuff like this. Sometimes your accountant will do estimated tax payments, when they get your tax return done, they'll give you a whole year of estimated payments, which is fine. But if your business changes, you need to be in contact with them, because you might need to adjust. What I like to do with my clients is, I like to get QuickBooks quarterly and kind of look and just see if we're on task. I know it's gonna cost you a little more tax fees, but in the end, it's gonna save everybody a lot of heartache. I also do accounting cleanup quarterly as well. Amy does a lot of entry for us, Julie also does that as well, to make sure that we've got everything all good. Yeah, please don't call the day before an estimate's due and hassle your CPA, that does not show your CPA the love. Questions? Okay, I run into this quite often too. People can't pay. I don't have the money to pay. I've had to rob Peter to pay Paul. It happens all the time. This is what I tell people, file. Always file the form. Because if you owe and you don't file the form, you're gonna have a failure to file penalty as well as interest and whatever else they add on. So any questions on that? We send, out of our office, if we're sending your 941s over, anything we send out for you, we charge you for certified because we send everything out certified. You always wanna make sure that you have a tracking of sending it in. Also note, pay as much as you can. Don't think of it just as like a free loan or a free ride. Send in as much as you can if you can't pay the whole amount. Had a gentleman who was so excited, started a new business, had employees, got his first check. He just moved to this new city. He went out and bought like $8,000 worth of furniture. That man to this day is still behind the ball on his payroll taxes. I know I sat down with him, Amy sat down with him, but you just need to make sure that you can cover your payroll taxes as much as you can, especially with the fiduciary funding. So the social security side that the employee contributes on withholding and that type of stuff, you can also get into an extra special fund penalty because those are fiduciary funds. Questions on that? If you can't pay, you find yourself in a one-time hit, you have to be current with the IRS, but you can request an installment agreement and they'll stretch it out for up to 72 months. Now, of course, they're still charging you interest and stuff along the way as well, but they will work with you on that. I tell people it's like dealing kind of with the mafia. You want to make sure that you're very clear on what all you're getting charged, all the extra add-ons, that kind of stuff. So it may be cheaper to either sell a piece of equipment or go to the bank and get a line of credit.
Can I add something to that?
Yes.
They're also not gonna call you and tell you they owe money.
Yes, we have gotten calls for that in our office, thank you.
Yeah.
Where the IRS is not going to call you. They will send you a correspondence. And generally they'll send it certified. We've had people actually knock on, the gentleman who cashed the check, that he thought was extra was actually a payroll deposit that could cross borders, and we had an IRS agent show up in his office because it was so high. Yes. You can get an extension for undue hardship as well, but that is, you need to produce financials, and it's to the point of, I can't pay this, or I'm gonna have to sell my home type stuff. So you've gotta really be in a hardship. They talk in the regulations, which is interesting, like your idea of a hardship and IRS's idea of hardship may not quite match up. Can also do offers and compromise. I've set through a couple of those. I will tell you, overall, those companies that say they can, you have this lien and they'll take just a piece of it, you know, we're getting way down where you hardly owe anything. They can get some things, but by statutory IRS tax code, there's a lot of things they can't do. I think they really way over. So I did have a client who looked into using them, and they wanted $5,000. And I'm like, just take the $5,000 and put it to your liability, don't mess with.
Oh, so, I'm sorry, so
Yes.
it just made me think of the commercial for like Optima Tax.
Yes.
So that's what you're talking about, they, of course, I'm sure they charge a fee.
So what do they, I'm not familiar with them, what do they do?
Well,
Is
it's
that
a
a tax
commercial.
relief thing where
Yeah,
they will?
yeah.
Optima Tax Relief,
Yeah.
right.
You're generally better off going
Just
on
paying
your
them.
own or going to a CPA's good or a tax attorney. They can do a few tricks of the trades. I've seen, I did have one client who put in $7,000. They were able to reverse, they captured one of their bank accounts and levied it and took it. They were able to get that undone to help cash flow for them, but that client paid like $7,500. I mean, it's just, to me, it's kind of predatory, but that's my own opinion. Anyway, so offer and compromise, if you do owe, the other thing to do too, that we've had people do not stick your head in the sand. Call and talk to them, communicate, send in 2848 to your attorney or your accountant, call on their behalf, make sure you stay in touch. Overall, I have felt that the IRS has been pretty good to work with, as long as they understand what's going on and you're not ignoring them. If you ignore them, that really irritates them, and it's just not a good thing. Another thing to note too, like if you call the 800 numbers or the 800 numbers listed, your practitioners, like I have a special practitioner line I can call into, and I can usually get up a few rungs higher than if you're just an individual calling in, or you're just calling in about a business. Questions there? Okay, communication, the way we communicate with you, we can call you on the phone, probably will be, I'd like to call and check in, see if there's anything you need, text, email, we send out postcards. Is everybody getting the postcards? Awesome. And then, my website is montsingercpa.com, so you can go out there, Lisa updates for things that are upcoming, that type of stuff. We respect your time, we try not to send stuff out just to be sending stuff out, so we'll either put it together, you can also put it on the newsletter if you wanna know what's coming on. I know I don't like my email filled up with a bunch of stuff I've signed up for, so. But if we're not texting you in a way or communicating in the way you would like to be communicated with, please let us know. Amy can get the troops rallied and we can get you there. Questions? Construction Career Expo, September 24th, 25th. It's actually the morning of the 25th that we'll have a lot of people coming through. We can use our KDOT funds to help pay for the booth fee, which is $500. Also have prime contractors there, so it's a great networking event. They buy you lunch, and it's really a good time. Questions there? Here, our focus is to serve you. Let us know if there's any other way we can serve you. I think that's pretty much it. One thing I do want to talk about, one thing I've been noticing on people when we take on new clients is people that are intimidated by the home office deduction. The home office deduction is absolutely okay to take as long as you're taking it. The rule is it needs to be, the space needs to be for exclusive use for business. I tell people to think about also not only where like your office may be, but are you using closets? I have a person who does ceramics. She's taken up her entire garage, and her previous tax accountant missed that whole deduction. I took on another person who kind of lives in a rural area. They moved their shop from in town to out town, and they had no deduction for that entire shop, all the utilities going to it, nothing. So, do you have any questions about home office at all? No? Okay. While we're kind of off here, is there any other questions you have about taxes that are kind of general that I might be able to answer for you? Yes.
Is per diem's gone, right? For, at least for in trucking, but I read that there's gonna be no per diem for this year.
I am not sure on trucking, I'll have to look that up, can you put that on the list for me to make sure? There might be something other that might be substituted
Right.
for that, so we'll need to make sure and look at that, so for the trucking industry specifically.
Mhm.
So I will look that up and we can maybe put it in the newsletter. And go from there. Other changes that have happened that really hit people hard, it's usually the people that do a lot of marketing, so you can't rent the skyboxes anymore. Golfing's out of the game now, that's non-deductible. You can pay for your employee to go. This happened with a client, so they do a lot of marketing and they do a lot of golf tournaments, they take clients out. So the question was, if I pay for them to golf, does that turn into a taxable event for the employee? And it does not, it just basically is you're paying it because you're furthering your business, you just can't deduct it on your tax return anymore. One of the big things I would always love to do is talk to people about the difference between 50% deductible meals and 100%. So if you have a meal where you bring it in that's convenience for your employees, that used to be 100%, that's now 50%. Had a lot of people who slid stuff into office supplies, the coffee, the tea, all that stuff, the snackies, that now is completely at 50%. So my guess is, and I've kind of done a little bit of tweaking, is that by them dropping the percentage of the tax you pay and taking out the difference, adjusting what you can deduct, I'm hoping will come out better. But it's really hard to tell until it really hits. And again, my opinion only, I think stuff was rushed too fast through. I don't think there were enough experts consulted when this happened. So it'll be interesting to see how things wash out when people start filing tax returns in 19 or 18. So it's not scary, it's an unsure time, I guess. Any other questions? Okay, well, I'm gonna finish up here and, we can get, you guys can have whatever you like, and then make sure you got a book, and then you signed in, because I get credit for you being here. Is there anything else, Amy, that we want to talk about? How much are we limiting the website workshop to? Is it 7?
I think 7. So if you think you wanna do that, let me know, because
Yes, very important.
it'll be a real focused on you getting your website up that day.
Yes, yes.
If you don't have a
yes,
website.
yes. And if there's any other topics, yes, ma'am?
Oh, no, I'm just curious, how does that work? Is everybody gonna try to be on one platform, and you're just gonna build it like in WordPress or something?
Yes.
Okay, alright.
Yeah, but we'll send out a list beforehand, so everyone has like their domain, we'll make sure people have, pictures that are in the appropriate format. And we can help you work on your content and that type of stuff. We'll have a team of people that are ready to help people. Like I said, it'll be, like Amy said, it'll be very intense. So by the end, then you've got a finished product. And then for the Construction Career Expo, then we can bring laptops in and show people your website. Has anyone ever done the Construction Career Expo before? So basically what it is, it's set up, it's at, where is it at? It's at
Expo Center.
Expo Center. And what they're trying to do is expose middle school and high school kids to the construction industry. So like some of the bigger companies will bring in dump trucks, there's usually someone who'll bring in wood and they can use drills, that type of stuff. And it just kind of introduces people to, you know, maybe, and the swing is really going this way, that, you know, for college degrees aren't for everybody, sometimes go tech is the better way to go, so. And you don't have a huge student debt too, which is helpful. Well, thank you for coming. You can always call Amy and call my office. I've got business cards if you'd like one, and I know I've worked with some of you one-on-one. And if you do need one-on-one, we can cover that through the KDOT grant, so you don't get billed for my time. I love QuickBooks. I love general ledger detail. I also like to show you how to match up your tax return to your financial records to show you how they should coincide together. Because my whole goal is to educate, give you guys knowledge so you can be better educated when you talk to your trusted advisor. Thank you for coming.